I'm Mackenzie, 28, and I never thought my graduation day would end with me standing in my parents' kitchen, staring at my destroyed cake on the floor while my nephew Tyler smirked and said those words that still echo in my head. Eat it off the ground like the dog you are. The shocked silence from my family was deafening. My sister Amanda just stood there, not saying a word to her 6-year-old son. That moment changed everything, not just my relationship with Tyler, but with my entire family. What happened next altered our family forever. If you've ever experienced that gut-wrenching moment when a family member shows their true colors, you know exactly how I felt in that kitchen. Before I dive into the whole painful story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like button if you've ever had to stand up to toxic family dynamics. Let me tell you how I finally found my voice and changed our family forever. Amanda and I grew up as typical sisters with a 7-year age gap between us. Despite the difference in age, we were incredibly close during our childhood. I still remember how she used to follow me around the house, wanting to do everything her big sister did. She would beg me to let her borrow my clothes, even though they were way too big for her. I'd help her with homework, and we'd spend hours playing make-believe in our backyard. Those are some of my fondest memories. Our parents, Eleanor and Robert, were hardworking people who pushed us both to succeed academically. Dad worked as an accountant at a local firm, while Mom taught second grade at the elementary school. They weren't wealthy, but they provided a stable home. Education was always emphasized as the path to success. My report cards were displayed prominently on the refrigerator, and Amanda's achievements were celebrated with special dinners. We were raised to believe that with the right education, we could achieve anything. Everything changed when Amanda got pregnant at 19. She was in her second year of community college, and the news hit our family like a tornado. I was 26 at the time, working on my associate's degree, while holding down a full-time job at a local bank. I remember the night she told our parents. Mom cried for hours, and Dad paced the kitchen, occasionally slamming his hand on the counter and asking, "How could you throw your future away like this?" The boy who got her pregnant, Trevor, disappeared from the picture as soon as he found out. Despite my parents' disapproval, I immediately stepped up to support Amanda. I put my own education on hold, picking up extra shifts at the bank to help with baby supplies. I went with her to doctor's appointments when Mom was still too angry to go. I held her hand during labor when Tyler was born, a beautiful 8-pound baby boy with his mother's blue eyes. Those first years were tough. Amanda moved back home with Tyler, and I became a surrogate parent in many ways. I would watch Tyler when Amanda picked up waitressing shifts. I spent countless nights walking a colicky baby around the living room so Amanda could get a few hours of sleep before her morning classes. I changed diapers, prepared bottles, and sang lullabies when Amanda was overwhelmed. My own dreams and goals took a back seat because family came first. That's what I believed then. When Tyler was 5, Amanda met Greg at the restaurant where she worked. He was a customer who kept coming back, leaving generous tips, and eventually asking her out. Greg was 10 years older, established in his career as a construction manager, and seemed to genuinely care for both Amanda and Tyler. They married after dating for just 6 months, and suddenly, Amanda had a new family unit. Greg adopted Tyler legally, and they moved into Greg's 3-bedroom house across town. With Amanda settled in her new life, I decided it was time to refocus on my own goals. I enrolled back in school while continuing to work full-time at the bank. It wasn't easy balancing work and classes, but I was determined to get my business degree. What I didn't expect was the subtle shift in Amanda's attitude toward me. When I would mention a good grade or a challenging project, she would change the subject to Tyler's latest achievement or something Greg had done for them. It was as if my successes somehow diminished hers. As Tyler grew older, concerning behaviors started emerging. When he was 7, he threw a tantrum at my apartment and deliberately broke a cherished glass figurine my grandmother had given me. Amanda laughed it off, saying, "Boys will be boys." When he was 9, he deleted a term paper from my laptop while I was in the bathroom. Amanda insisted it was just an accident, even though Tyler had to navigate through several folders to find it. My parents, especially Mom, seemed blind to these incidents. He's just a child, they would say, or he doesn't mean any harm. Family gatherings became increasingly tense as Tyler's behavior worsened. He would interrupt adult conversations, demand attention, and lash out if he didn't get his way. Holiday dinners were punctuated by Tyler's outbursts, with Amanda quickly jumping to defend him. Greg would occasionally try to discipline Tyler, but Amanda would undermine his efforts, saying things like, "Don't be so hard on him," or "He's just excited." When Tyler was 12, he spilled soda all over my textbooks that were sitting on my parents' dining table. These weren't just any textbooks, they were expensive accounting books I had saved for months to purchase. Instead of having him apologize or helping to replace them, Amanda rolled her eyes and said I should have been more careful about where I left my things. My parents, instead of backing me up, suggested I should have known better than to bring important items to family gatherings where an energetic boy was present. I spent hours carefully drying each page with a hairdryer, but many remained warped and stained. My frustration with Amanda's parenting approach grew with each incident. She never set boundaries for Tyler, and any attempt I made to discuss his behavior was met with defensive anger. "You don't have kids, so you don't understand," became her mantra. My parents, who had been so strict with us growing up, seemed to have completely different standards for their grandson. They excused behaviors they never would have tolerated from Amanda or me, buying him expensive gifts to appease him when he acted out. By the time I decided to finish my bachelor's degree, the family dynamic was well established. Amanda was the dedicated mother who had sacrificed for her son. I was the career-focused sister who couldn't understand family priorities. My parents doted on Tyler and Amanda while treating my educational pursuits as a hobby rather than a serious endeavor. Despite everything, I held on to the hope that once I graduated, they would finally see my achievement for what it was, the culmination of years of hard work and determination. Getting through college while working full-time was one of the hardest things I've ever done. For 6 years, my life consisted of early mornings at the bank, evening classes, and weekends spent studying. I saved every penny I could, often skipping meals or buying the cheapest groceries to afford textbooks. My car was 15 years old and broke down regularly, but I couldn't afford to replace it. Sometimes I would sit in my tiny apartment, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups, wondering if it was all worth it. What made it harder was the lack of support from my family. When I mentioned being exhausted from working 40 hours and taking 3 classes, Amanda would scoff and say, "Try raising a teenager. Then you'll know what tired really means." When I was excited about acing a difficult finance exam, Mom would listen politely for 30 seconds before changing the subject to Tyler's soccer tournament. Dad occasionally asked about school, but his eyes would glaze over when I tried to explain what I was learning. My best friend Jessica was my rock during those years. She would bring me dinner during late-night study sessions, proofread my papers, and listen to my frustrations about my family. "They should be proud of you," she would say. "I don't understand why they can't see how amazing what you're doing is." Jessica had graduated 2 years earlier and was working as a marketing coordinator. She understood the value of education and the sacrifices it required. 2 weeks before graduation, I invited my family to dinner to discuss the ceremony details. I had saved up to treat everyone to a nice meal at a local Italian restaurant, hoping the setting would make the occasion feel special. I wore a new dress I had splurged on and arrived early to request a good table. As soon as everyone was seated, Amanda started complaining about the parking. "This place is so inconvenient," she said, scrolling through her phone. "Tyler almost had a practice tonight. We would have had to cancel if his coach hadn't changed the schedule." I tried to steer the conversation toward graduation. I wanted to make sure everyone has the details for the ceremony. It starts at 10 a.m., and they ask that guests be seated by 9:45. I get 4 tickets, so that's perfect for you, Mom, Dad, and Amanda. "Greg, I'm really sorry." "Oh, I wasn't planning to come anyway. Greg interrupted. Someone needs to take Tyler to his soccer game. But Tyler's invited too, I said, confused. The email said children are welcome. Amanda rolled her eyes. He's not going to sit through a boring ceremony where they read 1,000 names. Besides, this game is important. There are going to be scouts there. But it's my graduation, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've been working toward this for 6 years. Dad patted my hand. We'll be there, honey. But you have to understand, Tyler's future could depend on this game. I felt a lump forming in my throat. My ceremony will only happen once. His team has games every weekend. It's not like you're graduating from Harvard, Amanda said with a laugh. It's just state. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I mechanically ate my pasta while Amanda dominated the conversation with stories about Tyler's soccer prowess and Greg's recent promotion. Mom and Dad asked a few questions about the ceremony logistics, but seemed more concerned about the parking situation than my achievement. When I mentioned I had ordered a special cake for a small celebration at their house afterward, Mom frowned. Oh, I don't know if I have time to clean the house properly, she said. I can come over early and help, I offered. Well, I suppose we could do something small, Mom conceded. But we need to wrap it up early. Your father and I are having dinner with the Hendersons that evening. On the drive home, I called Jessica in tears. They don't care, I sobbed. 6 years of hard work, and they're more concerned about a high school soccer game and dinner with neighbors. Skip the family celebration, Jessica suggested. Come out with me and Ryan instead. People who actually appreciate you. I considered it seriously, but something in me wasn't ready to give up on my family. I'll give them one more chance, I said finally. Maybe once they're at the ceremony and see how big a deal this is, they'll understand. In the days leading up to graduation, I threw myself into planning the small celebration. Jessica helped me order a beautiful cake decorated with my university's logo, and "Congratulations, Mackenzie" written in elegant script. I bought champagne and prepared a short speech thanking my family for their support, even though part of me felt like I was thanking them for something they hadn't given. The evening before graduation, I overheard a phone conversation between Amanda and Tyler while I was dropping off some decorations at my parents' house. I had stepped out to the patio to take a call from a classmate when I heard Amanda's voice through the open window. I know you don't want to go, she was saying, but Aunt Mackenzie will be upset if you don't show up. Why do I have to go to her stupid graduation? Tyler whined. No one else has to miss their game. It'll be quick, Amanda replied. Just show up. We'll take a few pictures, eat some cake, and we can leave early. I'll tell Mom we need to get you to practice. I stood frozen, my phone call forgotten. The casual dismissal of my achievement hurt more than I expected. After all the years of support I had given Amanda, all the nights I had stayed up with baby Tyler, all the sacrifices I had made for their family. This was how they viewed my graduation, an inconvenient obligation to be endured and escaped as quickly as possible. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why I kept hoping for approval from people who seemed incapable of giving it. But when morning came, I pushed aside my hurt feelings and focused on the day ahead. This was my achievement, my moment of triumph after years of struggle. I wouldn't let anyone diminish it. The morning of my graduation dawned bright and clear, as if the universe was acknowledging my achievement even if my family wasn't. I dressed carefully in the new outfit I'd purchased for the occasion, a crisp white blouse and navy skirt under my graduation gown. As I fastened my cap, I felt a surge of pride. Against all odds, I had done it. I had earned my business degree while working full-time, without a single student loan. No one could take that away from me. Jessica arrived at my apartment at 8:30 a.m., beaming with pride. She had made a handmade sign that read, "Congrats, grad," with glitter and photos of us throughout the years. "This is going on your chair at the ceremony," she announced. "Everyone needs to know how amazing you are." "Thank you," I said, blinking back tears. "For everything. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," Jessica replied firmly. "You're the strongest person I know, Mackenzie. but I'm glad I got to be part of your journey. We arrived at the university auditorium by 9:15. The place was already buzzing with excited graduates and proud families. Jessica helped me find my place in the line and then went to save seats, promising to hold spots for my family. I texted Mom to let her know where Jessica was sitting, then turned my phone to silent and tried to stay in the moment. The ceremony was everything I had imagined. Walking across that stage, hearing my name called, shaking the dean's hand as he presented me with my diploma, it felt surreal and wonderful. I searched the audience as I crossed the stage and spotted Jessica standing and cheering loudly. Next to her, I could make out my parents and Amanda, who had apparently arrived halfway through the ceremony. Tyler wasn't with them, which didn't surprise me. I felt a twinge of disappointment, but pushed it aside. This was my day, and I wouldn't let anything diminish it. After the ceremony, I made my way through the crowd to find my family. Jessica reached me first, wrapping me in a tight hug. "You did it! I'm so proud of you." My parents were next, offering more subdued congratulations. "Nice ceremony," Dad said, checking his watch. "A bit long, though." "We're proud of you, dear," Mom added, straightening my cap as if I were still a child. "Your hair is a mess under this thing." Amanda hung back, scrolling through her phone. When she finally looked up, she sighed. Tyler's coach moved practice up. "We're going to have to leave for the house soon if we want to make it on time." "Where is Tyler?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Outside?" Amanda replied vaguely. "He said it was too hot in here." We made our way to the parking lot, where we found Tyler leaning against Greg's car, engrossed in his phone. He barely looked up when we approached. "Congratulations," he muttered without making eye contact. "Thanks for coming," I said, trying to sound sincere despite the hurt I felt. The drive to my parents' house was tense. I rode with Jessica, following my family's cars. They could at least pretend to be excited, Jessica fumed. "Do they have any idea how hard you worked for this?" "It's fine," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. "Let's just get through this small celebration, and then we can go out tonight, just us." When we arrived, I was surprised to see that Mom had made some effort with decorations. A congratulations graduate banner hung in the dining room, and there were blue and gold balloons, my university colors, tied to the chairs. It wasn't much, but it was something. Greg was the first to offer me a genuine smile. "Congratulations, Mackenzie. This is a big achievement." "Thanks, Greg," I said, grateful for even this small acknowledgement. Amanda immediately began criticizing the decorations. "Mom, the banner is crooked. And didn't you say you were going to get flowers?" Mom looked flustered. "I ran out of time. There was a line at the grocery store, and then I had to pick up your father's medication." I quickly jumped in. "The decorations look great, Mom. Thank you for doing this." I set down the box containing the cake Jessica and I had ordered. "And wait until you see this cake. It's beautiful." The cake momentarily captured everyone's attention. It was truly stunning, a two-tier creation with my university's emblem, and "Congratulations, Mackenzie, class of 2023, written in elegant script. Even Amanda looked impressed. "That must have cost a fortune," she commented, which was her way of acknowledging it was nice. "It's a special occasion," I said. "I wanted to celebrate with everyone." Greg raised his glass of champagne. "To Mackenzie," he said. "For your hard work, determination, and achievement, congratulations on your degree." Everyone raised their glasses, even Tyler, though he was drinking soda and looking bored. For a moment, it felt like the celebration I had hoped for. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Speaking of achievements, Tyler has some exciting news too. Tell them about the scout who came to your game last week, Tyler." Just like that, the attention shifted away from my graduation. Tyler perked up, launching into a detailed account of how a scout from a prestigious high school soccer program had watched him play. Amanda beamed with pride, adding details and embellishments to Tyler's story. Mom and Dad listened with rapt attention, asking questions and expressing amazement at Tyler's athletic prowess. I stood to the side, my champagne untouched, feeling invisible at my own graduation celebration. Jessica caught my eye and gave me a sympathetic look. I took a deep breath and decided to try one more time to reclaim the moment. "I'd like to say something," I said, raising my voice slightly to cut through the conversation about Tyler's soccer future. "I just want to thank everyone for coming today. This degree represents 6 years of hard work, and I couldn't have done it without support." I had prepared a heartfelt speech about perseverance and gratitude, but as I looked at my family, Amanda already back to scrolling through her phone, Tyler fidgeting impatiently, and my parents exchanging glances, I realized no one was really listening. I cut my speech short. "Anyway, let's cut the cake." "Great idea," Dad said, clearly relieved. "And then we should probably get Tyler to his practice." As I moved toward the kitchen to get plates and a knife for the cake, I heard Dad ask Tyler about his upcoming tournament. My graduation was already forgotten, overshadowed once again by Tyler's activities. The frustration and disappointment I'd been suppressing for years threatened to bubble over. Jessica followed me into the kitchen. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "No," I admitted, "but what else is new? Let's just cut this cake and be done with it." With a forced smile, I carried the beautiful cake to the dining table, determined to salvage what was left of my celebration. I placed the cake on the dining table, trying to maintain my composure, despite the growing knot of frustration in my stomach. Everyone gathered around as I prepared to cut the first slice. The cake really was beautiful, exactly what Jessica and I had envisioned when we ordered it. At least I would have photos of it to remember my achievement, even if the actual celebration wasn't going as planned. As I reached for the cake knife, I noticed Tyler approaching from the corner of my eye. He had that look on his face, the one that usually preceded some kind of disruption. I tensed, but tried to ignore it. This was my moment, and I wouldn't let him ruin it. "Must be nice to have everyone make such a big deal about you getting a piece of paper," Tyler said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Some of us actually have real talent." "Tyler," Greg warned from across the room, but his tone lacked conviction. I took a deep breath. "This piece of paper represents years of hard work and sacrifice," I said evenly. "Something you might understand when you're older." Tyler's face darkened. "You think you're so much better than everyone, don't you? Always showing off with your grades and your job. Nobody cares." "Tyler, be nice," Amanda said half-heartedly, not even looking up from her phone. The smirk on her face betrayed her amusement at her son's behavior. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Tyler stepped forward, placed both hands on the edge of my graduation cake, and violently pushed it off the table. The beautiful creation tumbled to the floor, landing with a sickening splat. Blue and gold frosting splattered across the hardwood, the university emblem now a smashed blur. In the shocked silence that followed, Tyler looked directly at me and said those words I'll never forget. "Eat it off the ground like the dog you are." The room froze. I stared at my ruined cake, unable to process what had just happened. 6 years of hard work, symbolized by that cake, destroyed in an instant by a spiteful teenager. And not one person had moved to stop him. I slowly raised my eyes to look at my family. Dad was staring at his shoes. Mom's hand was over her mouth, but I caught the hint of a chuckle before she composed herself. Amanda stood there, making no move to correct her son or apologize for his behavior. Greg looked genuinely shocked, but remained silent. The silence was broken by Tyler's smug voice. "What? It's just a stupid cake." Something snapped inside me. All the years of being overlooked, of having my achievements dismissed, of supporting a family that couldn't support me in return, it all came crashing down in that moment. But before I could respond, Jessica stepped forward. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "Do you have any idea what Mackenzie has sacrificed to get her degree? Working full-time, studying all night, missing out on everything people in their 20s are supposed to enjoy?" Tyler rolled his eyes. "Whatever." "No, not whatever," Jessica continued, turning to face the rest of my family. "And shame on all of you for just standing there. This is your daughter, your sister. who has accomplished something amazing despite getting zero support from any of you, and you let this spoiled brat ruin her celebration without saying a word? Amanda finally sprang to life, stepping between Jessica and Tyler. He's just a kid, she snapped. You have no right to speak to him like that. He's 16, not 6, Jessica shot back. Old enough to know better, and old enough for you to have taught him some basic human decency. But I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? As Amanda and Jessica continued to argue, with Mom occasionally interjecting to defend Tyler, I slipped away to the bathroom. I locked the door behind me and sank to the floor, finally allowing the tears to come. I pulled out my phone and texted my boyfriend Ryan, who was away on a business trip. Tyler destroyed my graduation cake, told me to eat it off the floor. No one said anything. I can't do this anymore. Ryan's response came immediately. That's beyond messed up. Get out of there. You deserve so much better. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there today. A soft knock on the bathroom door interrupted my thoughts. Mac? It's Jess. Can I come in? I unlocked the door, and Jessica slipped inside, locking it behind her. Without a word, she sat beside me on the floor and put her arm around my shoulders. I'm sorry I lost it out there, she said after a moment. I just couldn't stand by and watch them treat you like that one more second. Thank you, I whispered, for standing up for me, for being here. We should leave, Jessica said firmly. Right now. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just grab your diploma and walk out. Ryan's still out of town, right? Come stay at my place tonight. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. The thought of facing my family again was unbearable. Okay, let's go. We slipped out of the bathroom and through the kitchen door to the driveway without saying goodbye to anyone. As we drove away, I saw Greg step onto the porch, watching us leave with a conflicted expression. That night, curled up on Jessica's couch with a pint of ice cream, I checked my phone to find a text from Amanda. Way to overreact and ruin the day. You know how teenagers are. You're making this into way more than it needs to be, as usual. I turned off my phone and spent a sleepless night staring at Jessica's ceiling, replaying the cake incident over and over in my mind. Something had to change. I couldn't keep hoping my family would suddenly start treating me with respect and consideration. It was time to face reality and make some difficult decisions. If you've ever had to reassess your relationship with family members, you know how gut-wrenching that can be. It feels like your whole foundation is crumbling. Drop a comment below if you've ever had a moment that made you realize something had to change in your family dynamic. Your story might help someone else know they're not alone. The week following my graduation was one of the most challenging periods of my life. I returned to my apartment the next day, ignoring calls from my parents and deleting Amanda's increasingly defensive text messages without reading them. I needed space to process what had happened and decide what to do next. Jessica and Ryan, who had returned from his business trip, took turns checking on me, bringing food and offering support. Ryan was particularly upset about what had happened. I should have been there, he kept saying. I would never have let that kid talk to you that way. It's not your fault, I assured him. And honestly, it's not even really about Tyler. It's about the whole family dynamic that allows him to behave that way without consequences. 3 days after the incident, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Mitchell, the therapist I had seen occasionally during particularly stressful periods of school. I needed an objective perspective from someone who understood family dynamics. What you're describing is a pattern of emotional neglect, Dr. Mitchell said after I recounted the cake incident and the years leading up to it. Your achievements and needs have consistently been minimized, while your sister and nephews have been prioritized. But they're my family, I said, still struggling with the implications. Shouldn't I just forgive them and move on? Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. Forgiveness is important for your own peace of mind. But it doesn't mean continuing to subject yourself to hurtful treatment. There's a difference between forgiveness and having no boundaries. Boundaries, I repeated the word, testing how it felt. I don't think I've ever had proper boundaries with my family. It's not too late to establish them, Dr. Mitchell assured me. But it will require you to be clear about what behavior you will and won't accept and what consequences there will be if those boundaries are crossed. I spent the next few days researching family estrangement and toxic relationships. The more I read, the more I recognized the patterns in my own family. Amanda's jealousy and undermining. My parents' differential treatment between us. Tyler's learned entitlement. My own people-pleasing behaviors that kept me hoping for approval that never came. A week after graduation, while still deliberating what approach to take, I was scrolling through Instagram when a post from my mother stopped me cold. It was a series of photos from Tyler's soccer tournament that weekend. The caption read, "So proud of our star athlete. Special celebration dinner at Morton's for the big win. Number, proud grandparents number, soccer star." The photos showed Tyler in his soccer uniform, surrounded by my beaming parents and Amanda at an upscale steakhouse. One image featured an elaborate congratulatory cake with "Way to go, champion!" written in frosting. The date stamp indicated it was taken the day after my graduation. Something broke inside me. Less than 24 hours after my graduation celebration had been ruined, my cake literally destroyed my family, had gathered for an expensive dinner to celebrate Tyler's soccer game, complete with a cake more elaborate than the one that now lay in my parents' trash. I called Jessica immediately. "I'm done," I said when she answered. "I can't do this anymore." "What happened?" she asked, concerned. I explained about the Instagram post and the celebration dinner. "They couldn't even give me one day," I said, my voice breaking. "One day to celebrate something I worked 6 years for. But they had time and money for a fancy dinner, for a regular season soccer game the very next day." "Oh, Mac," Jessica sighed. "I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" "I don't want to cut them off completely," I admitted. "They're still my family. But something has to change. I'm going to try one more approach, a strategic one." Over the next few days, with support from Jessica and Ryan, I developed a 3-part plan. First, I would document the pattern of mistreatment and establish clear boundaries in writing. I gathered text messages, emails, and photos that demonstrated the consistent dismissal of my achievements and the favoritism shown to Tyler. I wasn't planning to present this evidence in an accusatory way, but rather to help illustrate the pattern I was trying to break. Second, I would meet with each family member individually, except Tyler. He was still a minor and ultimately Amanda's responsibility. These meetings would be in neutral locations where no one could storm off or deflect the conversation. Third, I would present consequences for continued disrespect. This was the hardest part to determine. What leverage did I have with family members who clearly didn't prioritize their relationship with me? After careful consideration, I decided the consequence would be my absence. Not a dramatic declaration of cutting ties, but a quiet withdrawal from family events where I was not treated with respect. I wrote a detailed letter explaining my feelings and perspective, being careful to use I statements rather than accusations. I described specific incidents, including the cake destruction, and how they had affected me. I outlined my boundaries clearly. I would not tolerate being disrespected, having my achievements dismissed, or being treated as less important than other family members. I practiced reading this letter aloud with Jessica, refining the wording to be firm but not aggressive. Ryan offered an important perspective during this planning stage. "My parents are nothing like yours," he said one evening as we worked on my approach. "When I told them about what happened at your graduation, they were horrified. Mom said they would have marched Tyler straight to his room and canceled soccer for a month." "Really?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Of course," Ryan said. "That's what normal parents do when kids act like that. And they said to tell you they're incredibly proud of you for getting your degree while working full-time. They're taking us out to dinner next weekend to celebrate, by the way." The contrast between Ryan's family's reaction and my own was illuminating. It helped me realize that what I was asking for wasn't unreasonable. Basic respect and acknowledgement of important life events should be the minimum expectation from family, not an unreachable ideal. Jessica helped me practice confrontation techniques for when defensiveness inevitably arose. We role-played scenarios where Amanda blamed me for overreacting or Mom deflected with complaints about being caught in the middle. Ryan offered his family's home as an alternative place to spend holidays if reconciliation efforts failed. Throughout this planning process, I had a growing realization. My education and career success was the best form of revenge against those who had dismissed my efforts. Not revenge in a vindictive sense, but in the satisfaction of proving to myself that I could achieve my goals regardless of their support. My degree couldn't be destroyed like a cake. My accomplishments were real and permanent, and no one could take them away from me. I set up a timeline for executing my plan. I would start with Dad, who I suspected might be the most receptive, then move on to Mom, and finally Amanda. I didn't expect miraculous changes overnight, but I hoped that by approaching the situation thoughtfully, rather than reactively, I might be able to shift the family dynamic in a healthier direction. As my confidence in the plan grew, so did my sense of empowerment. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to my family's behavior or trying to earn their approval. I was establishing my own worth and expecting to be treated accordingly. The day before my scheduled meeting with Dad, I received an unexpected call from Mom. "Mackenzie," she said when I answered, "why haven't you been returning Amanda's calls?" "She says you're ignoring her." "I needed some time to think," I replied calmly. "I'm planning to talk to all of you next week." "About what?" Mom asked, sounding genuinely confused. "Is this still about that cake? You know how boys can be. Tyler didn't mean anything by it." I took a deep breath, sticking to my plan rather than being drawn into a premature discussion. "I'd prefer to have these conversations in person, Mom. I'll see you next week as planned." After hanging up, I felt a renewed determination. Their inability to understand why I was upset only confirmed how necessary this confrontation was. With my plan in place and my support system behind me, I was finally ready to address years of toxic family dynamics. I chose to meet my father at a quiet coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where neither of us would feel trapped or defensive. I arrived early, securing a corner table that offered some privacy. My heart was pounding as I reviewed my notes one last time. This conversation could go in so many different directions, and I wanted to be prepared for all of them. Dad arrived exactly on time, as he always did. He looked confused and slightly irritated as he slid into the chair across from me. "What's all this about, Mackenzie?" he asked without preamble. "Your mother says you're upset about something Tyler did. Boys will be boys, you know. No need to make a federal case out of it." I took a deep breath. "Dad, this isn't just about what happened at my graduation. That was just the breaking point. This is about a pattern of behavior that's been going on for years." I calmly explained how I felt consistently overlooked and undervalued by the family. I gave specific examples. The dinner 2 weeks before graduation when Amanda belittled my degree, the way my educational achievements were minimized while Tyler's soccer games were treated as major events, and finally, the cake incident and its aftermath. "Do you know that less than 24 hours after Tyler destroyed my graduation cake, you all took him out for a celebration dinner at Morton's, with a cake even nicer than the one he ruined?" I asked. "How do you think that made me feel?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. "That was Amanda's idea. Tyler had a good game, and she wanted to celebrate. I worked for 6 years to get my degree, Dad. 6 years of full-time work and night classes, and my celebration was ruined by a teenager who was never told to apologize. Don't you see the double standard?" Dad's defensive posture gradually softened as I continued to present my case calmly and factually. When I showed him the Instagram posts juxtaposing my ruined celebration with Tyler's elaborate one, he finally sighed and ran a hand over his face. "I guess we have been a bit focused on Tyler," he admitted reluctantly. "Amanda always makes such a big deal about his activities, and your mother and I just go along with it." "And what about my activities? My achievements?" I pressed. "You've always been so independent, Mackenzie," he said, as if this explained everything. "You don't seem to need us the way Amanda and Tyler do." Everyone needs support and acknowledgement from their family, Dad. Being independent doesn't mean I don't need you to be proud of me or to stand up for me when I'm disrespected. By the end of our hour-long conversation, Dad had acknowledged that they had probably been too lenient with Tyler and that the family had taken me for granted. He didn't apologize outright, but he did promise to think about what I had said and talk to Mom and Amanda about it. It wasn't the full recognition I had hoped for, but it was a start. The meeting with Mom the next day proved more challenging. We met at the same coffee shop, but unlike Dad, who had at least listened, Mom immediately went on the defensive. "Families have disagreements, Mackenzie," she said dismissively. "There's no need to make such a production out of it. Tyler is a teenager. They do thoughtless things sometimes." I stuck to my plan, calmly presenting the same examples and evidence I had shown Dad. Mom's responses were remarkably consistent, minimizing, deflecting, and occasionally attempting to make me feel guilty. "Do you have any idea how hard Amanda has had it?" she asked. "Being a single mother at 19, having to give up her dreams?" "I do know, Mom," I replied. "I was there, remember? I put my own education on hold to help her. I babysat Tyler countless nights so she could work or study. I'm not dismissing Amanda's struggles. I'm asking why my struggles and achievements aren't acknowledged the same way hers are." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You're tearing the family apart with this," she said, her voice breaking. "Is that what you want? To punish everyone because of one incident with a cake?" It was a classic manipulation tactic, one I had anticipated thanks to my preparation with Jessica. "I'm not tearing anything apart, Mom. I'm trying to heal a dynamic that's been hurting me for years. I want us to be a family that respects and supports all its members equally." By the end of our meeting, Mom hadn't conceded as much as Dad had, but she had at least stopped dismissing my concerns entirely. She agreed to consider what I had said, and promised not to discuss our conversation with Amanda before I had a chance to speak with her. The most difficult confrontation, predictably, was with Amanda. I chose a park for our meeting, knowing that the public setting might help keep emotions in check. It was a beautiful spring day, which seemed at odds with the heaviness I felt as I waited for my sister on a bench near the duck pond. Amanda arrived 20 minutes late, already radiating hostility. "Let's get this over with," she said, sitting as far from me as the bench allowed. "I have to pick up Tyler in an hour." I started with the same calm approach I had used with our parents, but Amanda interrupted me almost immediately. "Save it," she snapped. "Dad already called me with some nonsense about how we don't appreciate you enough. Is that what this is about? You need more attention?" I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stick to my plan. "This is about basic respect, Amanda. The way Tyler spoke to me at my graduation was completely unacceptable, and the fact that neither you nor anyone else in the family addressed it is hurtful." "He's a teenager," Amanda exclaimed. "They say stupid things sometimes. You're a grown woman making a federal case out of a ruined cake. Do you know how pathetic that sounds?" Rather than getting drawn into an argument, I pulled out the letter I had written and handed it to her. "I'd like you to read this. It explains everything I'm feeling better than I can say it right now." Amanda rolled her eyes but took the letter. As she read, I could see her expression cycling through annoyance, defensiveness, and finally, something that looked almost like guilt. When she finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You've been keeping score all these years?" she finally asked, but her tone had lost some of its edge. "Not keeping score," I corrected gently. "Just noticing patterns and hoping they might change." What happened next surprised me. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, and her carefully maintained facade cracked. "You want to know the truth?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've always been jealous of you, Mackenzie. Always." I blinked in surprise. "Jealous? Of me? Why?" "Because everything comes so easily to you," she said bitterly. "You're smart, you're pretty, you're successful. Our parents always bragged about how well you did in school. how responsible you were. Then I got pregnant, and suddenly I was the family disappointment. And there you were, stepping in to help, being perfect as usual. Amanda, nothing about my life has been easy, I said, genuinely shocked by her perspective. I worked incredibly hard for everything I've achieved. I know that, logically, she admitted. But emotionally? I wanted to see you fail at something, to be less than perfect for once. She looked down at her hands. When Tyler started acting out toward you, part of me enjoyed it. I even encouraged it sometimes. It was like he was expressing all the resentment I felt but was too afraid to show. Her confession stunned me. All these years, I had interpreted her behavior as dismissiveness or lack of interest. I never imagined she saw me as some kind of rival. I'm not perfect, Amanda, I said softly. Far from it. And I never meant to make you feel inferior or judged. I know, she sighed. That's what makes it worse. You're not even trying to be better than me. You just are. The conversation took an unexpected turn as Amanda began to share years of pent-up feelings. She admitted to deliberately undermining my achievements and encouraging Tyler's disrespect as a way to take me down a peg. She confessed that her resentment had influenced her parenting, allowing Tyler to develop entitlement and disregard for others because it made her feel powerful by proxy. As painful as these revelations were, they also represented the first honest conversation Amanda and I had had in years. When she finished speaking, I took a deep breath. Thank you for being honest with me, I said. But you have to understand that this dynamic isn't healthy for any of us, especially not for Tyler. He's learning that he can treat people disrespectfully, without consequences. That won't serve him well in life. Amanda wiped her eyes. What do you want from me, Mackenzie? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry Tyler ruined your cake. What I want is for us to start building a healthier relationship, I said. And yes, I do want Tyler to apologize, but more importantly, I want him to understand why his behavior was wrong. I think family counseling might help us work through some of these issues. Amanda's face hardened immediately. Counseling? Are you serious? There's nothing wrong with my son that requires therapy. He's a normal teenager. Normal teenagers don't tell their aunts to eat cake off the floor, I pointed out. And normal mothers don't encourage or excuse that kind of behavior. The conversation devolved from there. Amanda became increasingly defensive, rejecting my suggestion of counseling and demanding that I apologize to Tyler for making him feel bad. When I refused, she stood up abruptly. This conversation is over, she declared. When you're ready to stop blaming a child for your problems and apologize to him, let me know. As she stormed off, I sat on the bench feeling a mix of emotions. The confrontation hadn't ended as I'd hoped, but at least everything was now out in the open. There was a certain relief in that, even amid the pain. That evening, as I recounted the conversation to Jessica over the phone, my call waiting beeped. It was Greg, Amanda's husband. I told Jessica I'd call her back and switched over. Mackenzie? Greg's voice sounded hesitant. Do you have a minute to talk? Greg suggested meeting for coffee the next day. I was surprised by his request, but agreed, curious about what he wanted to discuss. We arranged to meet at a different coffee shop from the one where I'd confronted my parents, one closer to Greg's workplace. When I arrived, Greg was already there, nursing a cup of black coffee and looking uncomfortable. He stood up when he saw me, offering an awkward half-wave. Thanks for meeting me, he said as I sat down across from him. I know things are tense with Amanda right now. That's an understatement, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. What's this about, Greg? He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. I wanted to apologize for not saying anything when Tyler ruined your cake. I should have stepped in, and I didn't. I'm sorry. His direct apology caught me off guard. In all the scenarios I had imagined, Greg offering a genuine apology hadn't been one of them. Thank you, I said simply. I appreciate that. The thing is, Greg continued, leaning forward slightly, Tyler's behavior that day wasn't an isolated incident. He's been acting out more and more lately, at home and at school. What do you mean? I asked. Greg looked tired suddenly. the lines around his eyes more pronounced. Last month, he was suspended for cyberbullying a classmate. Before that, he got caught vandalizing the gym bathroom. His grades are slipping, and he talks back to his teachers. When I try to discipline him, Amanda undermines me. She makes excuses for him, says I'm being too hard on him. I listened in silence, not entirely surprised, but saddened nonetheless. The worst part is, Greg continued, he's starting to treat Amanda the same way he treats you. Last week, he called her stupid when she asked him to take out the trash. He barely speaks to me, except to ask for money. He looked up at me, his expression troubled. I love Tyler. I've raised him since he was 5, but I'm worried about the man he's becoming. Have you talked to Amanda about this? I asked. Greg nodded. She says it's just a phase, that all teenagers go through this. But I don't think this is normal teenage behavior. And honestly, after seeing how he treated you at the graduation and hearing what you said to Amanda about his lack of consequences, I think you might be right. I was moved by Greg's vulnerability and his willingness to reach out despite the tension with Amanda. What are you asking from me, Greg? Advice, I guess, he admitted. You were there for Tyler's early years. You have a perspective on this situation that I don't. And you're the only one who's had the courage to call out the problem directly. I considered my words carefully. I think Tyler needs clear boundaries and consistent consequences. And yes, probably professional help too. But it won't work if Amanda isn't on board. I know, Greg sighed. That's the hard part. Our conversation shifted to strategies for approaching Amanda again, this time with Greg taking the lead. Before we parted, Greg shared something else that shocked me. There's something else you should know, he said hesitantly. Your parents have been financially enabling Tyler's behavior. That time he vandalized the school bathroom, they paid for the damages in secret so it wouldn't go on his record. And there have been other incidents too. They're trying to protect him, but I think they're just making things worse. This new information put my parents' enabling behavior in an even more troubling light. They weren't just excusing Tyler's behavior verbally, they were actively shielding him from consequences. Thank you for telling me this, I said, and for reaching out. It can't have been easy, given everything that's happened. Greg shrugged. Family is complicated. But I want what's best for Tyler, even if he and Amanda can't see it right now. As we parted ways, I felt a glimmer of hope. If Greg was willing to acknowledge the problems and work towards solutions, maybe there was a chance for positive change. 2 days later, I received a call from my father. His voice sounded different, more serious and thoughtful than our previous conversation. I've been thinking about what you said, he began without preamble. About Tyler's behavior and how we've all been enabling it. I talked to your mother about it, and, well, we think you might have a point. I was so surprised I couldn't respond immediately. Greg called us yesterday, Dad continued. He shared some concerns about Tyler that we hadn't been aware of, or maybe we didn't want to be aware of them. Either way, we think it might be time for a family meeting to address these issues directly. I found my voice. I think that's a good idea, Dad, but I'm concerned Amanda won't be receptive. Leave Amanda to us, Dad said with newfound resolution. This has gone on long enough. We love Tyler, but the way he's been acting toward you, toward his teachers, even toward his own mother, it's not acceptable. And it's not going to help him in the long run. We arranged for a family meeting that weekend at my parents' house. Greg would bring Amanda and Tyler, and I would come alone. I felt anxious about the confrontation, but hopeful that with multiple family members acknowledging the issues, we might make progress. The day of the meeting, I arrived early to talk strategy with my parents. To my surprise, they had clearly given this significant thought. We've been doing research on family intervention, Mom said, showing me some printouts from parenting websites. And we found a family therapist who specializes in adolescent behavior. We've already made an appointment for next week. All of us? I asked, impressed by their initiative. To start? Yes, Dad nodded. Eventually, Tyler might need individual sessions, and maybe Amanda too. But the therapist recommended we begin as a family since the dynamics between us are contributing to the problem. When Amanda, Greg, and Tyler arrived, the tension was immediately palpable. Amanda looked suspicious and defensive, while Tyler slouched in with his typical air of disinterest. Greg gave me a subtle nod of encouragement. "What's this about?" Amanda demanded as soon as they were seated in the living room. "If this is another ambush about Mackenzie's cake—" "This isn't about the cake, Amanda," Mom interrupted firmly, surprising everyone with her direct tone. "This is about a pattern of behavior that we're all concerned about." Amanda blinked, clearly not expecting this from our mother. "What are you talking about?" Dad stepped in. "We've noticed that Tyler has been struggling with respect and responsibility lately. The incident at Mackenzie's graduation was just one example. Greg has shared other concerns with us, and we think it's time we address them as a family." Tyler, who had been staring at his phone, looked up with a scowl. "This is stupid. I don't need to be here." "Actually, you do," Greg said, taking Tyler's phone from his hand. "And you need to participate respectfully." Amanda's eyes widened at this united front. "Wait a minute. You've all been talking about Tyler behind my back? How dare you?" "Amanda," I said as gently as possible, "this isn't about going behind your back. It's about all of us caring about Tyler and wanting what's best for him." What followed was an emotional and at times heated discussion. Amanda became increasingly defensive, accusing everyone of ganging up on her and Tyler. She threw out accusations of jealousy and resentment, particularly directed at me. The turning point came when Greg, in a rare show of firmness, laid down an ultimatum. "Amanda, I love you, but this has to stop. Tyler needs help, and if you can't see that, then we have bigger problems than we thought. I'm not willing to watch him throw away his future because we were too afraid to set boundaries." Amanda's face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she might walk out. But then Tyler, who had been sulking silently, suddenly burst into tears. "Why is everyone always on my case?" he sobbed, dropping the tough guy act. "Nothing I do is ever good enough." The raw emotion in his voice silenced everyone. Greg moved to put an arm around him, but Tyler shrugged it off. "Tyler," I said quietly, "no one is saying you're not good enough. We're saying that some of your behaviors aren't okay, and they're hurting both you and the people who care about you." "Whatever," he muttered, but the defiance had left his voice. Mom gently explained the plan for family therapy, presenting it not as a punishment, but as a tool to help everyone communicate better. To my surprise, Tyler didn't immediately reject the idea. He looked exhausted, as if maintaining his angry facade had finally become too much effort. Amanda, seeing her son's distress, seemed to deflate slightly. "I just want what's best for Tyler," she said, her voice small. "We all do," Dad assured her. "That's why we need to work together on this." By the end of the meeting, we had established a tentative plan. The family would attend therapy sessions together. Tyler would apologize to me for the cake incident and would be expected to make amends for other behavioral issues at school and home. There would be clear consequences for disrespect and rule breaking, consistently enforced by all adults in the family. Most importantly, I had established my own boundaries. I would participate in the family healing process, but I would no longer accept disrespect or dismissal of my feelings and achievements. If those boundaries were crossed, I would remove myself from the situation until they were respected again. As the meeting concluded, I pulled Amanda aside for a private word. "I know this is hard," I said, "but I want you to know that I'm not doing this to punish you or Tyler. I want us to have a better relationship." Amanda looked at me with tired eyes. "I don't know if I can be what you want me to be, Mackenzie." "I'm not asking you to be anything other than my sister," I replied, "and to acknowledge that my feelings matter too." She nodded slowly, not quite in agreement, but not a rejection either. It was a start. As everyone prepared to leave, Tyler approached me awkwardly. "Aunt Mackenzie," he mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes, "I'm supposed to tell you I'm sorry about your cake." It wasn't the most sincere apology, but I recognized the effort it took him to make it at all. "Thank you, Tyler," I said. "I appreciate that." Greg gave me a thumbs up from across the room. My parents looked relieved that the confrontation was over, and I felt for the first time in years that perhaps real change was possible. I wonder if you've ever had to confront difficult family dynamics. Did you find unexpected allies in the process? Let me know in the comments below, and hit that like button if you've ever had to set boundaries with family members. Sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most important changes. 6 months after the family intervention, I found myself sitting in my apartment reflecting on how much had changed. The journey hadn't been smooth or easy, but the progress was undeniable. The family therapy sessions had been challenging at first. Our therapist, Dr. Winters, had a gentle but firm approach that didn't allow any of us to hide behind excuses or deflect responsibility. She helped us identify the unhealthy patterns that had developed over the years and gave us strategies for breaking them. Tyler had been resistant initially, sitting slouched in his chair and giving one-word answers. But by the third session, something shifted. Dr. Winters asked him directly how he felt when people praised his athletic abilities but didn't hold him accountable for his behavior. His answers surprised all of us. Like they don't think I'm smart enough to do better, he admitted quietly. Like they think sports is all I'm good for. That moment of vulnerability opened the door to more honest conversations. Under Dr. Winters' guidance, Tyler began to connect his acting out to deeper insecurities. He wasn't just a spoiled kid. He was a young man struggling with the expectations placed on him and the mixed messages he'd received about what was acceptable behavior. His individual counseling sessions seemed to be helping too. Greg reported that Tyler's grades were improving and there had been no further disciplinary issues at school. The transformation wasn't overnight. He still had moments of teenage attitude and rebellion, but the meanness that had characterized his behavior seemed to be fading. About 2 months into therapy, I received a handwritten letter in the mail. The handwriting was awkward, clearly belonging to someone who didn't write letters often. It was from Tyler. "Dear Aunt Mackenzie," it began. "I'm writing this letter because Dr. Winters says it's important to make proper amends when you've hurt someone. I'm sorry for ruining your graduation cake and saying those mean things to you. It was disrespectful and cruel. I've been thinking about why I did it, and I think part of me was jealous of all the attention you were getting. Mom always acted weird when people talked about your accomplishments, and I guess I picked up on that. That's not an excuse, just an explanation. Anyway, I'm sorry, and I'm working on being better. Your nephew, Tyler." The letter moved me to tears. It wasn't perfectly worded, but it was sincere in a way his forced apology at the intervention hadn't been. I called him the next day to thank him for the letter, and we had our first real conversation in years. He told me about his classes, his friends, and his goals for the soccer season. I told him about my new job in financial analysis, which I had started shortly after graduation. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Amanda's journey was more complicated. The therapy sessions had forced her to confront her long-standing jealousy and the ways she had enabled Tyler's behavior. It was painful for her to admit these things, especially in front of our parents. There were sessions where she shut down completely, and others where she lashed out defensively. But slowly, she began to take responsibility for her role in the family dynamics. One particularly breakthrough moment came when she acknowledged how her resentment toward me had affected her parenting. "I think I wanted Tyler to be better than Mackenzie at something," she admitted during a session. "So I pushed the soccer thing really hard, and I let him get away with treating her badly because part of me enjoyed seeing her taken down a notch." It's horrible to say out loud, but it's the truth. That level of honesty opened the door to real healing between us. We began to have private conversations outside of therapy, tentatively rebuilding our sisterly relationship. She apologized for dismissing my educational achievements and for not intervening when Tyler ruined my cake. I apologized for times when I might have inadvertently made her feel inferior or judged. One evening, about 4 months into our family healing process, Amanda invited me over for dinner. It was just the two of us. Greg had taken Tyler to a soccer match. We sat on her back patio, drinking wine and talking about childhood memories. "Do you remember when you taught me how to ride a bike?" she asked suddenly. "After Dad tried for weeks and couldn't get me to stop being afraid?" I smiled at the memory. "You were so determined once you got the hang of it. Mom couldn't get you to come inside for dinner." "You were always patient with me," Amanda said softly. "When we were kids, I thought you hung the moon. I wanted to be just like you." "What changed?" I asked, the question I'd been wondering for years. Amanda sighed. "I got pregnant. You were off at college, and I was stuck at home with a baby. Everyone looked at you with such pride, and at me with such disappointment. And then you came home and were so perfect about it all, helping with Tyler, never complaining, never judging. It made me feel even worse about myself." "I wasn't judging you, Amanda," I said gently. "I was just trying to help." "I know that now," she nodded. "But at the time, it felt like you were showing me up, being the perfect aunt while I was the screw-up mom. And as the years went on, it was easier to resent you than to face my own insecurities." That conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. It wasn't perfect, we still had moments of tension and old habits that needed breaking, but there was a new honesty between us that felt healing. My parents changed too. The intervention had forced them to recognize their role in enabling Tyler's behavior and dismissing my achievements. Mom made a particular effort to acknowledge my career successes, asking questions about my work and listening attentively to my answers. Dad, in his own quiet way, began to show his pride in me more openly. He framed a copy of my diploma and hung it in their living room, alongside Tyler's soccer trophies. The most visible sign of our family's transformation came at Mom's birthday celebration, 3 months after our intervention. I had volunteered to bring the cake, and to my surprise, Tyler asked if he could help me bake it. We spent an afternoon in my kitchen, mixing batter and decorating. Tyler was surprisingly meticulous with the frosting, carefully piping "Happy Birthday, Grandma" in wobbly but earnest letters. "I want to make sure it's perfect," he explained when I commented on his concentration. "I know how it feels to have something you worked hard on ruined." The self-awareness in that statement showed just how far he had come. At the celebration, as Mom blew out her candles, I looked around at my family and felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. The healing wasn't complete. Real change takes time, and we all still had work to do, but we were on the right path. After the party, Amanda pulled me aside for a private conversation. "I want you to know," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "that I'm genuinely sorry for everything. For undermining you, for allowing Tyler to disrespect you, for being a jealous, petty sister. You deserved better." "Thank you," I said, moved by her sincerity. "That means a lot to me. I'm trying to do better," she continued. "With Tyler, with you, with everyone. It's not easy facing your own ugliness, but it's necessary." "You're not ugly, Amanda," I assured her. "You're human. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we're working on them." In the months that followed, our family continued to heal and grow. Tyler's behavior improved dramatically as he received consistent boundaries and consequences. Greg and I developed a closer relationship, bonded by our shared concern for Tyler and Amanda. My parents made efforts to treat all family members with equal respect and consideration. The journey wasn't without setbacks. There were still moments when old patterns emerged: a dismissive comment from Amanda, an entitled attitude from Tyler, enabling behavior from my parents. But now, we had tools to address these issues directly, instead of letting resentment fester. For my work anniversary, the family planned a special dinner. Everyone contributed something. Mom made my favorite appetizers, Dad bought champagne, Greg grilled steaks, Amanda created a photo slideshow of my professional journey, and Tyler, in a moment that brought tears to my eyes, baked a cake. It wasn't as polished as a bakery creation, but the card that accompanied it meant everything. "Congratulations, Aunt Mackenzie. Sorry I ruined your last celebration. Hope this one is better. Love, Tyler." As I looked at my family gathered around that table, I realized that standing up for myself had ultimately helped everyone. By refusing to accept toxic dynamics, I had forced issues into the open that had been damaging all of us in different ways. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary for genuine healing. The graduation photo that had been conspicuously absent from my parents' display of family milestones now stood prominently on their mantel. Beside it was a new family portrait taken at a professional studio, all of us together, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. These physical reminders of our journey served as touchstones for the emotional work we had done and continued to do. I learned that true family loyalty isn't about enabling harmful behavior or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about caring enough to have difficult conversations, set necessary boundaries, and work toward healing together. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is to stand firm and demand better from them and for them. The cake incident, as painful as it was, became the catalyst for positive change that might never have happened otherwise. In challenging my family's dysfunction, I discovered my own strength and helped forge a healthier path forward for all of us. Thank you all for coming along on this journey with me. If my story has resonated with you in any way, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and the courage to stand up for yourself. Have you ever had to confront toxic family patterns? Did it lead to positive change or difficult decisions? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might give someone else the courage they need. Remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept behavior that hurts you or others. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.